Good afternoon, everybody. Sorry for the late start to this session. As far as our broadcasts is concerned, the World Touring Cars ran a little bit long. The session did start on time, so we've missed about a minute of it, but nothing, of course, has happened in that 1 minute. Good to have your company in sound and vision wherever you are around the world. It's John Hindhaugh with Ben Constantiouris and Johnny Palmer for this final qualifying session for all bar the top three of the classes. JP, an incident packed yesterday evening and a whole host of penalties coming through overnight last night. More penalties than the playoffs of a European Championship final.
There were an awful lot of fingers being used in the commentary box, definitely, to try and keep tabs on the amount of cars that were given penalties for fairly minor infringements. Then again, you had speeding in code 120s out on the Nordschleife, which is very much frowned upon, and some key names, not least the winners of the race last year, the #1 Porsche, given a penalty. So yeah, we're talking about the complexion of qualifying over sessions 1, 2 and 3. Two of them held yesterday, the final one for 60 minutes just starting now, and how really for the SP9s and the SPX entries, qualifying itself doesn't happen until 10 to 6 tonight. But some teams and drivers, therefore, will already know their fate in terms of where they're not allowed to start on the grid on Saturday. Within that starting Group 1, there's a whole host of shuffling to take place.
Was that the Bilstein Mercedes with... No, it's an Aston Martin with problems early on the Nordschleife, and it's the number 90, David Pittard. Pitbull Pittard, as Peter Snowden has named him, and he's been off and he's hit something, Ben Constantiouris. There's red paint on the front of that car where there should not be any, which suggests to me he's been into a tyre stack.
The telltale red paint. It's difficult conditions out there because we have seen drizzle most of the morning. We are now, as you can see on the pictures, in blue skies, and therefore we should have a relatively dry track around the circuit, but there will be puddles of wetter conditions. In fact, he's gone into the barriers with the rear, which has spat the front around. Damage to both the rear and the front. Is still running on track, got it facing the right direction. Will surely bring that car back to pit lane to get it checked out once he completes the full Nordschleife. But I'm sure these drivers will experience a little bit of puddling in certain parts of the track, especially under the trees. We have quite a stiff wind, so it should dry it out, and it is starting to get warmer out there. But certainly the rubber that was laid down with all the runnings from yesterday has been washed away, and we are starting from afresh again. Will we see improvements in the times for some of our other categories? We had so much interrupted running yesterday, we may well.
Yeah, it's a good point, Ben. We will have the provisional pole sitters for you at the end of this session for, as I said, everyone bar the big classes, and that we are certain of. We have two top qualifying sessions, two sessions later on tonight, with now
Huber Motorsport, number 75.
That's a Porsche.
Yeah, and Huber Motorsport definitely run it, with the rear wing missing on the 75 car. The second time that car's been in the barrier in 2 days.
That's the same car that we saw parked up facing the wrong direction last night, wasn't it?
Yes.
And again, contact with an SP6, and the Mercedes have got its way through, but it's a fast part of the circuit.
Car. That's just after Flugplatz, heading up the hill, just 4 kilometres into the Nordschleife. That is super quick as they're coming up with that right-hander as they climb the hill up towards the top of the foxhole. Oh my goodness, they've actually been quite lucky there, Ben.
In terms of the damage to the car, absolutely, it's gone into the tyre barrier to its rear, so flat into the rear of the... That should mean that the suspension is facing the right direction. They'll be able to bring that car back to the pits. But the Mercedes, the Get-Speed Mercedes, was alongside and almost past when the Porsche turned in to the flat-out right-hander and turned in to make contact with the rear of the Mercedes. So you can't necessarily blame the Mercedes for that particular incident, but we did see at the start of yesterday's qualifying 2 session some of the SP9 drivers being incredibly aggressive on their outlap and having contact with other SP9 cars, most notably Patrick Pilet and Nick Tandy getting together.
Feel sorry for the Uber Motorsport guys, because that's a Pro-Am lineup in the 25 car, and they are still prioritising top qualifying, because the final qualifying session of the 2 days will involve both the Pro-Am and the Pro elements. There's no difference in the machinery being used. It's all about the driver combinations. But what I like is that it's not been prioritised just for the top-notch SP9 teams, if you like. Everyone deserves to be in there, but you've got to make space for one another.
And I think the difficulty is with SP9, with that Pro-Am lineup, if you do have an Am driver in the car, your Pro drivers around the circuit in the other GT3 cars don't know that there's an Am driver in. They don't know the behaviour of that car. You can kind of predict the behaviour of a Pro driver because they all tend to do the similar thing. But with an Am driver who is not pedalling quite as fast as the Pros would do in that same car, they might behave differently, and it's difficult to judge.
I'll just finish the point I was making before we had that incident. There are effectively 2 top qualifyings tonight, and we will whittle them down to a pool shootout. And so there's top qualifying 1 and top qualifying 2. Let's call it top qualifying and the pool shootout. That's the way I'm reading that, JP, that we will get some people qualified, and then it's the top 4, isn't it, from the first part of the single car qualifying that go into the pool shootout to join the 15 cars that have already pre-qualified by their theoretical laps in NLS, by their performances in the top qualifying and in the 2 qualifying races a couple of weekends ago that Snowy and I watched intensely. But ultimately we'll have just shy of 20 cars going around to give of their best, and 8:08.421, the Augusto Farfus time that I think they are aiming for. I really should have written that down somewhere when I found that out last night.
Is that the record? Is that the lap record in qualifying?
That is the qualifying record. It was broken 2 days in a row. At the qualifying race weekend. You remember there was a new format for this 50th anniversary running of the TotalEnergies ADAC 24 hours of the Nürburgring, and instead of having one 6 hours, there was a Saturday 3 hours and a Sunday 3 hours, which effectively were 2 separate race meetings. And for the Friday race, we had top qualifying for the usual top 40 cars. On the Sunday, we had top qualifying, i.e. single car qualifying, for everybody who was taking part in the race. And it was 2 BMWs, and it was the other BMW of Augusto Farfus who sneaked it by fractions, hundreds of seconds on the second day. So the qualifying record for this configuration, because remember, this is not the same configuration that they run in NLS. This is a longer run on the Grand Prix circuit and a different run into the start of the Grand Prix circuit. It was broken on consecutive days in fairly cool conditions, it has to be said, because both of those qualifying sessions were run in, well, the Saturday was running quite early in the morning, into mid-morning, and mid into late morning on the Sunday before the 3 hour race started at 1 o'clock.
We're seeing quite a fast circuit at the moment. There's quite a few SP9 machines out on track breaking their best laps of the particular cars, comparing themselves to the splits that we bring over from yesterday's action. So qualifying 1, qualifying 2, and now qualifying 3, they're all combined. So the greens and the purple sectors are being compared to what's been done before, not being compared to what we're seeing in this particular session, which does mean the likes of Jeroen Blekemolen in the Ferrari 488 number 14 machine, Mauro Engel in the number 4 Mercedes. At the moment, Jeroen Blekemolen is 32nd on the grid, so that would not be enough. Although these times do not carry on till the next qualifying session, that would not be enough to get him through into the top qualifying session, but he should improve his time at the line. And Jeroen Blekemolen comes to the line now and graphically doesn't stop the clock. Yes, he does, and he moves up to 28th.
If you're following along online, the times that are shown for all of the cars are a combined session time so far. So we've had 2 full qualifying sessions. If you go to the Nürburgring 24 site, there is live timing there. You can go to that to follow through, and all of the times on there are cumulative, as I say, from each of the sessions. So effectively, although we're having 3 sessions with 1 or 2 people making some difficulties for themselves in misjudging, a couple of Porsches in strife on the Grand Prix circuit, including Cayman number 3 96. That's one of the next entire blue and purple cars, and they have those times effectively, Johnny, make this a single qualifying session. It's a bit like MotoGP, where every time you're out on the track, you're actually being competitive, and then you break it down for the top runners and riders, as it will be here. But all of these sessions have been counting.
They have, and that means that there's been some progression in the lower classes throughout the course of the 3 sessions. We only had, was it 90 minutes to start the week.
And we lost 18 minutes of that.
Yes. Yeah. 3 hours of technically night practice or night qualifying, but the first hour of that was still in daylight, and the glorious golden light that we had on run up to sunset, which was last night 9:27, so you can bank that as roughly the right time for Saturday night in the race. And now this is a pretty short session of just 60 minutes to allow for the SP9 teams a chance to set up their cars looking ahead to top qualifying tonight. But for everybody else, if you're not on pole already, then these are your final moments to try and rectify that.
Correct.
And within the session, you know, I'm not sure about the green and purple times. I think they are this session, because the number 98 car, having just completed a lap, it was full of personal bests, but it hasn't improved the 8:14.771,
which was the time set in the first session yesterday.
Yes, by Nicky Katzberg.
Yeah.
He was the 3rd driver to get on board that 98 car. It's interesting, you go to the press centre here at the Nürburgring and pick up the official press release, and that states that John Edwards set the time. I had to revisit
that's
that.
Correct.
No,
he didn't.
John was slower, with the greatest of respect.
He set the first time that put that car on top.
Yeah.
And then Katzberg.
Marco Wittmann got into it and went quicker.
Yeah.
And then Nicky Katzberg got in and he did the 8:14.771 on, I think, something like lap 6.
They all did 2 laps early on to get through that 2-lap requirement. And Katzberg was the 3rd driver in and did that 14.771. I'll run you through in a minute once things calm down. Good luck with that. Who we think is on pole position. According to the timing screens. Now, what I will say is I don't think all of the penalties have been applied to some of those times, because the Hyundai Motorsport Elantra, for example, is still shown as pole in TCR when that had all of its lap times disallowed. Now, was that just from yesterday, from the 2nd session? If that was just for the yesterday session, that's fine, because their lap time was set in the 1st session yesterday. So we're going to have to be very careful. And I think that come Saturday morning, when we get the official grid, is when we will find out actually where people will line up. There's even a bit of confusion from the driver's briefing. The English notes and the German notes don't tally up about where you start after issues and being thrown to the back of your starting group. It would appear in the English notes to say that you start from the pit lane after your group has gone through, which is quite a considerable disadvantage, because A, you're starting from the end of the pit lane, and B, you haven't had a lap to assess the conditions and warm up your tyres. However, in the German version, it says you will start at the back of the grid on a rolling start with everybody else.
Yeah.
So there's some difference of opinion in the briefing notes, as I have read them anyway, even with my very rudimentary German, which was a very long time ago, but Mrs. Powell, my German teacher, will be delighted to know I was reading through those last night.
We do have a yellow flag still down at Flugplatz because the Huber Motorsports Porsche rear wing is still sitting just offline, but at the bottom of the dip of the right-hander. So kind of, if you make a mistake or if you are running side by side with a slower class car, then you will find it in the middle of the road for you. So unfortunately, it does mean that those that are on a push in sector 4 of the lap are finding themselves having to go slower. So we are seeing plenty of green sectors and a couple of purple sectors, but ultimately due to that sector 4 yellow flag and another one that's just come up, we are not seeing improvement at times.
Right, here's an improvement in time for Jerome Blakemorgan in the Racing 1 Ferrari, an 8:25.399. That was his last lap around. Now,
he was ahead of the.
He was ahead of the yellows. Yeah, exactly so. So there is time in the track once we get back to green flag all the way around the circuit.
Now, Flugplatz actually is in sector 2, no? I would have thought.
It's 9 sectors, Ben.
I did have the map up. No, it is in sector 4. That's correct.
Yeah.
Because sector 2 is still the Grand Prix loop.
Correct. Glickenhaus back out today. They were working hard yesterday and did make some improvements yesterday evening. Moved up to second in their 3-car SPX class. At one stage, they were sitting behind the 2 KTM crossbows. It is Frank Mayer behind the wheel of that car. The best time yesterday was an 8:21.852, and that put them just ahead of the True Racing Crossbow GT2 with an 8:22.720. That's the car, that True Racing 117 car, that has the Stuck brothers in the car. Intervention vehicle out on the circuit to pick up the rear wing plane that was wiped off the number 70 Uber Porsche. This is the mostly white car with the black front and rear and a very orange stripe over the top. It's a 991.2.
It's actually the only SP7 Porsche in the field these days. SP7 used to be a class of 15, 20
Is that a cup car then? That's a cup
yeah,
car.
but an old cup car that still runs to the SP7 rules of 2-3 years ago.
Okay.
Because the sort of latest spec Porsche cup car runs in Cup 2. I think I'm right in saying.
Yes, correct. Cup 2 is for the 992.
For the 992, yeah. That's an easy way to remember it.
Yeah, that's how I've been remembering as well, Johnny. At RSL_studio, use the hashtag N24HRSL if you want to get in touch with us here in the booth. We're right on the finish line. The cones have been put out for this session again, so you've got 3 options at the end of the Grand Prix circuit. You can go out onto the Nordschleife, you can come round and back on to the Grand Prix circuit, or you can come into the pits. And the cones have been put out exactly opposite where I'm closest to the finish line. There's a cone right in front of me, and then there's one right in front of Ben, and then one right in front of Johnny. He's the furthest to the right.
That's right.
That's geographically, not necessarily politically.
Indeed. Thank you for clarifying.
Dries, before anybody tweets in, JP. Sorry, Dries Van Toor.
Dries Van Toor, yeah. In one of many Audi R8 LMS GT3 Evo 2s. And again, this car improving as far as its session time is concerned. Very excited by Sheldon van der Linde's absolute best through the first half of the Grand Prix circuit, but we're going to have to wait over 8.5 minutes for Sheldon to cross the line to see if we are going to get a full-on improvement across all 3 sessions. I realise, one good time on a 9-sector lap is going to still require a decent chunk of luck for the rest of it, but we'll wait and see. Jesse Kroon's BMW number 101 is still second. At 3rd position, no longer that BMW lockout. That was changed late last night when the Bilstein liveried Mercedes of Philip Ellis got up to 3rd position, number 12.
Goes from bad to worse for that Huber Porsche 991. Being asked to go and see the clerk of the course. So not sure what they did that they have attracted the ire of race control. Hello to Jerry in sunny, hot and humid Central Florida, tuned in. and listening and watching. Thank you for your help. Paul West says, the difference in the briefing notes is actually correct. It depends on your nationality. If you're a German driver, you start at the back of the grid. If you're English, you have to start the pit lane. I think he's only joking on that.
Difficult. Sarcasm on Twitter is difficult to detect, right?
We need a sarcasm emoji. We really do. We have 40 minutes to go, which means the top 15 quali cars can now join in because they had to miss the first 20 minutes of all of these qualifying sessions. So they, Ben, have not got a lot of time. If they've got work to do, they haven't got drivers that are qualified. They've got to get them out now. You're talking about, you know, an outlap that is 8.5, 9 minutes, and then, you know, a couple of laps after that. That's another 16, 17 minutes.
That's exactly how I read the briefing notes, but it does seem as though they are all out on the track since the start of the session, having a look at the cars that we've seen already doing laps. So we had that rule yesterday for Q1 and Q2, and we definitely saw it in effect, but it doesn't seem, maybe because the session is so short today, or that they lost 20 minutes in Q1, they've been given it today.
Might have been given that back.
And it hasn't been a massive rush to get cars out on the circuit. We did see a trickle of cars at the very start of the session. There's still plenty that are sitting in the pit lane without going onto the track yet.
Improvement for the Audi Sport Team Phoenix, number 15, Johnny Palmer, 8:18.651.
Yeah, it was Dries we were concentrating on for a short period, and he was able to carry that on. So started the session in 12th and has now jumped up the order and into 7th position. That is also a not yet qualified for top Q2 car. The ones that are featuring in the top 10 that are already guaranteed a slot in the second bit of top qualifying tonight. 101, which is the Valkenhorst BMW, the time set by Christian Krognes yesterday. The 12 car, which is third, already in, as is the 22 and the 99. The 22 is the Audi Sport Team Car Collection Audi, and the 99 Rover Racing BMW, but there's only one Rover Racing BMW into Q2 so far, but clearly the 98 car's carrying enough speed. You would have thought to finish in the top 4 of, I think it's 21 cars in total in Q1 later, and you've got to be in the top 4 of that by the end.
There have been a few tweets to at RSL_studio about how the penalty situation will work out with so many people being assessed penalties yesterday. How do they decide who gets what spot at the back of whichever group it is?
True.
Now, the normal situation is that they go in the order in which they were assessed. So the last penalty that is assessed will be the person at the back. Then the one before that will be the one before that in time. And therefore the first person who got pinged is 20 cars further up the grid than they thought they were going to be, potentially. Now that would be if everybody got the same penalty, but there were some subtle differences in the wordings of the penalties that came in overnight about going to the back of the first starting group, going to the back of their starting group, being at the back of the group, etc., etc. Some of them were just grid drops. There was 5-place grid drops, so obviously that will be assessed depending on where they finish up after whichever qualifying session is their final opportunity to put in a fast lap time.
Is there a bit of common sense in amongst that, though? If you are one of those ones that's been pinged with a massive penalty, you just don't do top qualifying tonight. Because what's the point of risking pranging the car if you know you're going to be starting from the back of Group 1 anyway?
Yeah.
Just park it.
Unless they take those times and use those times. If you've all got penalties, then those times dictate where you are in the penalty order.
Oh, there's a secondary qualifying group in amongst the penalty takers.
Could be, yeah.
Are you going to make this even more complicated, Palmer?
Why not?
There's an impish grin on Johnny Palmer's face.
Top qualifying Q3 for all the naughty boys and girls.
The penalty. A penalty shootout, in fact.
There you go. In the dark.
With no lights. Because you've been bad.
Exactly.
And you have to reverse around. I've seen that done in the virtual qualifying when people have made up some weird rules. We've got 34.5 minutes remaining. Whilst we're waiting for some more quick times to come in, let me tell you, as it stands at the moment on the timing screen, who are in provisional pole for for the categories. Start at the back of the grid, not out at the moment, and listed as a not starting now, the 324 FX Performance.
Which means we haven't seen them in this session.
Not in this session, right,
yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's the BMW 325, that's the V4 pole sitter in 122nd position. In V5, it's the 444 Porsche Cayman 981 of Adrenaline. In VT2 front-wheel drive, it's the Hyundai Driving Experience i30N. Really good story behind that car. Not a TCR car. Far from it. The 332 is in 111th position. In 105th position, SP3, is the Toyota Gazoo Racing Team Thailand Corolla Altis. That's the little four-door saloon car. All Thai driving team, including the absolutely legendary and super famous back in Thailand, Natavode Charan Sukawatana, Mad Cow as he's known to his friends. No, really. He's in that 119 car and in 105th position, pole position for that class. The VT2 rear drive car is the Adrenaline Motorsport BMW 330 G20. That's in 104th position. That's the car 330. The 240i class, Schnitzelarm Racing, as they have been for most of the qualifying session. That is the 245 car inside the top 100 at 99. At 98, V6 pole sitter at the moment, Adrenaline's Porsche Cayman S 981 type. The VT3 leader at the moment is the 300 car, 97th position for Mathol Racing EV. By the way, the 261 car, which got banged up a little bit, that's got Peter Kate in it. If you're following that, I know a lot of you are in the UK, that car, Peter telling me, not coming out today. They've still got a bit of work to do after it was banged against the arm core last night, not by Peter, I hasten to add. The Dansberger Porsche 718 GTS is the best of the SP4T. That's a privately entered car. It is the 718 numbered car as well in 92nd place. In Cup 5, which is the M2 class, Adrenaline Motorsports number 871 is on provisional pole in 84th position. 73rd position for the number 70 Uber Motorsport Porsche. That's the car that's had that incident. It is the only car in SP7, and they've been called the clerk of the course as well. Even if they get put at the back of their grid, they'll still be on pole. The Hofer Racing BMW M3 E46 GTR is the best of the SP6s. That's the Kroll and Prinz family outing. That's the number 200, and they are just outside the top 70 at 72. Inside the top 60 for SP3T, the Subaru, the STI WRX. That's the SP3T leader, the 114. 57th position is where we find the TCR provisional pole sitter, still listed as the Elantra TCR, the 830 from Hyundai Motorsport. FK Performance Motorsport have their 718 Cayman S in the pole position for Cup 3. That's the 263 car and 56, not seeing that car out today so far. The SP8T leader is still the Aston Martin of Dürr Motorsport. That's the 95 car, just outside the top 50 at 52. Right on 50th position, Pro Sports Aston Martin has the SP10 provisional pole at the moment. That's the number 82. 46th for the Dodge Viper, which has been bossing the AT fuel category. 5 cars in that category this year. They sit at 46th for the big 8.4 litre number 13. In 35th position, the Cup 2 leader for the Porsche 992 Carrera Cup cars. That's K. Kramer Racing and the number 127. One place further up in the timing is the 160 Cup X. That is the Teichmann Racing KTM Crossbow. That's their category, and that's the GTX version of that car. In 13th position, the GT2 version of that car, the 5-cylinder version for True Racing. The number 116 leads SPX, and of course the 98 Rover Racing BMW still on top in the number 1 position with the number 98 car. Ben.
Again, the True Racing KTM Crossbow not out on circuit yet. We haven't seen them in this session, so they are starting to descend our overall running order, because they started the day in 12th, but a couple of our SP9 cars, and we're seeing more and more now, setting lap times, so they are starting to fall themselves down 16th right now. Best of the improvements that we've seen whilst you were going through our class leaders was the Schrerer Sport Team Phoenix Audi, now up to 5th position with Ricardo Feller aboard that car, and we were able to ride on board with most of his lap, as we now ride on board with, I think, an improvement from the KTM Crossbow GTX machine. It's its sister car that has the pole position in that class right now, but Tim Tandler has had a pretty clean lap.
And he is down in 53rd position, is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, that's one of the 4 Cup-X Teichmann machines.
Yeah.
So we've got crossbows in
Third in
Cup-X.
its class at the moment, JP.
Yeah, so the 4 Teichmann machines run by that crew from Austria, I think, just like True Racing are. But True Racing have the GT2s that are in SPX, and these are the GTXs that are in Cup-X.
Moves up in its positions overall, but needed to get down another 10 seconds or so to move up a position in class.
And it's kind of the True Racing effort is pretty much a works KTM entry, isn't it? So huge amount of development work gone in. We've seen Conrad run those cars as well in the past, especially in the 24H series. And the driver listed in the SPX machine that I think hasn't gone out, Mads Schilhaug, he's done a lot of development work on that car.
Yeah, as has Laura Kryhammer as well. Very, very impressive machines there.
And I'll just correct what I said about Teichmann. They're based down the road at Adenauer, actually. So Teichmann are German, True Racing are the guys from Graz in Austria, and basically from the KTM factory.
You would think that would be a sort of Kermit-coloured car, wouldn't you? Because surely everything from Graz is greener.
Oh, dear.
I'll get them out the way now.
Yeah, I would, please.
Graz actually a massive automotive hub in the centre of Europe, with the Steyr-Puch factory down there, which can be reconfigured to build all kinds of cars for all kinds of manufacturers, and have built some very exciting cars down there. Where they were very good at cabriolets for a long time. Did a lot of the Peugeot cabriolets in that factory, but they've built various cars for various premium manufacturers. Very clever factory, and a huge manufacturing facility just outside of Graz. I had a Steyr-Puch bicycle when I was a lot younger. Magnificent piece of engineering. Wish I'd never got rid of it. And of course built Fiat 500s under license many years ago. The old Cinquecento air-cooled cars. Very much sought after, those early cars. Particularly the ones with the lift-off roofs. The bolt-on roofs. Very clever.
Manthey Racing Porsche now out on track. This is one of the cars that has qualified for a little later on in the second part of top qualifying. Lawrence Vantor rather than Fred Makovici, getting some drive time into the #1 car. This is another key name that has got the wrong end of the penalty book, if you like, and already destined for some kind of grid drop, whether that is from the pit lane or right at the back of Group 1, but they still need to put in the hard yards during qualifying 3 so that the car is nicely set up for the evening second part of top qualifying job.
Got a couple of questions. We'll take this one first from Ken Childs. What are the cones on the right-hand side of the front straight just before the finish line for? They'll disappear at the end of today. You won't see those in the race. Basically, as you come off the Grand Prix circuit, you have 3 choices. You can go out on the Hatzenbach and onto the Nordschleife. You can go around and use those cones to blend back onto the start-finish straight, or you can peel back in to the pit lane. So you can't come off the Nordschleife straight onto the pit lane in this session. That will change when we get to the race. I think this must be probably the only racing circuit in the world where we run slightly different configurations between practice, qualifying and the race itself. Delighted to say that we are joined from Team Mathol 261 Porsche Cayman by Peter Kate. Good afternoon, Peter.
Good afternoon to you, John.
How's it been? The car's not out. A little bit of damage last night, but other than that, how's it been going?
Yeah, the car's fine, actually. We could have run, but we made a decision earlier to not run in this session to save the car because we figured it was going to be raining, which it was earlier, but of course now, sod's law, track conditions are perfect. But the car's good. It was only a light damage. One of my teammates just got caught out on the Grand Prix, actually, on cold tyres. So Q1, we were P3 in class. It's the Cup 3 class, so it's quite a busy class and everybody's very close. And then our time from that session is now P7, I think. That's where we'll be, unless people go quicker in this session, which they may well do. But it's a long race.
The top of the class there is FK Performance Motorsport with another Cayman. So this is a 718 Cayman?
Yeah, 982 model, so it's a brand new car.
All right, 92, okay, yeah.
I drove a Cayman, as you know, last year, the year before, although unfortunately with no crowd around the track, the atmosphere was a bit different. That was a 718 GTS. This is a big step forward. It's not super much faster, but just so much better balanced and rewarding. It's just a better developed car. It's got more aero. The whole, what I call gizmos, you know, being a dinosaur as I am, I don't use them as much as I should, but the TC and the stability control and the ABS is so much more advanced.
I saw the picture of your office for this week with a steering wheel that wouldn't have looked out of place so many years ago on a Le Mans prototype.
Yeah, that's right. It took a while to learn. I mean, Mante were kind enough to send me the manual, and I spent many nights. Yeah, there's a manual. In English too, and I was able to spend quite some time on the lead up to learn it, because, you know, it's not the kind of thing you want to be thinking about, as you know, when you're driving.
Second nature.
You just got to do it without looking. And a bit of an embarrassing incident last night. I was trying to use the additional night lights that we have just to get a sighter lap in the night, not really a flyer, just to see. And I thought they were on, but they weren't on. And it was only when I came back in the pits that I realised. So when they saw the video, they were like, that was really dark.
Well, at least you didn't squirt yourself in the eye with your drink while you were trying to flash them or anything like that.
That's another little learning for me as well. I've never had the luxury of not having to suck on the tube. It just gives me the drink when I want it, which is another bottle, another button, excuse me, on the steering wheel to learn. Yes.
I mean, the basic concept of the Cayman and the Boxster, which is the soft top car, of course, is a flat 4 or flat 6 in this case engine mounted really low and right in the centre of the car, and it is really low in the car. And the fact that it's a horizontally approached a flat 6 engine means that it can get it way down in the car. Yeah,
and you can feel that. I mean, it's like a huge go-kart. It just feels so different. I mean, you and I, we've raced front engine, more powerful cars, and the amount of physicality in those cars is greater than with the Cayman. But then, of course, with that comes, if you don't push it a little bit further, you won't be competitive. And we're in a one-make class, which is a first for me here. Actually, I've always been in a mix, sometimes similar cars to others. But this being a one-make, you really have to benchmark yourself against everyone else. And the thing I'm finding, I think, most challenging, being, let's be kind and say a veteran, is using these ABS systems to the extent that they can be used. I'm not saying I'm so traditional that I don't use them at all, but it takes away feel. And I'm not the kind of person, I suspect you're the same, who would just mash the brake pedal so hard without any kind of concept of what's going on through your leg. And it's the same with traction control, stability control, mid-fast corner. If the thing starts doing things that I'm not creating, I don't necessarily feel so comfortable. So it's been a learning process, but we're competitive. We'll be up there, and it's just a matter of the last few seconds are going to come from the electronics.
And we've got the number 300 car.
That's a sister car.
Yeah, that's your sister car, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sitting out on behind the barriers at the moment. I think it's being pulled back there. I don't think it's ended up there from issues. It is at the behind one of the gaps in the fence. I think that's at Schwedenkreuz, but I'll get that confirmed in a moment or two ago. How many years have you been coming here now, Peter?
This is
Pick a
my,
kid, by the way, that you're listening to now.
this
The
is my-
261 Matholka.
This is my 20th, John. This is my 20th consecutive 24 hours, and I had the luxury to drive many of those with some fantastic teams and brands like Aston.
Were you the last class winner for Aston here?
I believe so. Yeah.
So it was you, Alex Brundle,
and
Jamie Chadwick.
Yeah.
That was what, 18?
That was 19.
19?
In the first GT8
Yeah.
new model, and that was a big step forward, and they've taken it further since, I know. But yeah, I'd like to think I can continue to do this until people get tired of sharing with me. I think I'll know when it's too late to continue.
Well, Peter, you've been competitive. You've had class wins since then?
Yeah, we had 2 last year, but I don't really count them in the sense that, every trophy's a trophy, and I'm not going to hide it away in the back of a wardrobe. But when there are only 2 or 3 finishing in your class, it's more a victory of finishing than it is of winning. This time it's quite a different kettle of fish. I think we're the second biggest class this time, and as I said, they're all one make, so the challenge will be somewhat different.
How does the track change from year to year? Because you look at a track map and it hasn't changed. The actual outline of the circuit hasn't changed for decades, but the track is subtly different year on year because it's a bit like the Forth Road Bridge project. There's bits going on all the time.
It's true. It's a really good point. So, I'm not a geologist, but I'm pretty sure that stuff moves anyway, even if we didn't touch it. And over the winters here, I'm fairly sure that bumps get worse or go away. But the big change here is at the end of the Dottinghoe into Tiergarten, the resurfacing there. It's one of those situations where if you were really fighting for the last second, you could go through there so fast. The compression and the lump after it, which you'd normally have lifted just before in the compression, there are people taking that flat.
Oh, the GT3s aren't even coming off the throttle till halfway up that hill.
Yeah, even
and then
that
they're pointed to the end of the left-hand arco, which is helpfully painted orange. And it's like every time I'm watching an onboard there through the NLS races that we've been doing in the last couple of years, and it's just like, how close are you actually aiming at it and expecting the car to drift away from it?
It's madness. But even the Cayman that we're in, with none of that downforce, none of those sticky tyres, there are people going through that first section flat and then braking straight to the left, and it's the grip level from the new tarmac, and it's the same couple of other places around what we fondly call miss hit miss before Versailles.
Coming down the hill from Callanhart.
Yeah, there are a few people who go up miss, but they didn't get as far as Versailles. But that's more grip now as well, and the bump before it's gone. So yeah, it does change, and it's a really good idea, obviously, to come here. We did come here in NLS3 to get a sense of what the changes were beforehand. In the rain, it'll all be different with the new tarmac. We'll have to find out if the wet lines are traditional wet lines or if there's some bits that are still okay. But you're right, it changes a lot, and it's such a fantastic challenge because of that.
Dare you set yourself challenges and therefore goals in a race, in any 24-hour race? You've done plenty of them now, and one I was fortunate enough, as you mentioned there kindly, to be your teammate. Do you dare set yourself goals around this place in particular?
I think the goals, the best one that I heard that I live by is no unscheduled stops. So no unscheduled stops, because if you take a risk to gain a second and you end up going off, no pit stop will be a second long. You're going to lose at least 10-20 minutes of fixing. And
that's assuming that you can get the car back straight away.
Precisely, that's the best case scenario after a crash. So no unscheduled stops is one. The other is, and I think we've achieved it so far, is be consistent between the drivers. It's quite interesting. Some of the cars in our class have clearly got one pro driver and the others, let's say, not so much. We seem to be within plus minus 10 seconds, very similar lap times. So I think
round here,
over a long period of time, that should pay off if we can stay out of trouble. So it's no unscheduled stop, be consistent, and then from some of the learnings in the past, don't try and do anything clever, because it will bite you.
It's never anything that I have to worry about. The way I've lived my life, I've never done anything clever ever. I don't think I've made a career out of being stupid.
I don't know where that puts the rest of us, John. But
well, certainly making sure I always ask the questions that I need answering. That's the thing. In your car, then, the guys that you're driving with, how much do you know them, and how much can you build a team relationship in just maybe one race or the few practice and qualifying sessions before now? Because this isn't a team that's been racing together time and time again.
No, that's true. Well, I mean, first of all, like you, I'm a bit of a data hound, so I knew what these guys were capable of beforehand. So the two guys that were in the car in the NLS, they won in 2019 this race with the same team, so they know what they're doing. And then Tony Richardson is ex-Aston as well, like me. Even if we didn't always share the car, I know him very well. I know he's consistent, and essentially there are no real egos in the team. Coming to NLS3 enabled me to meet the guys, and in fact they insisted also to make sure I wasn't an ego maniac or somebody that they didn't want to drive with. So
because gelling outside the car is important, so important as being consistent in the car.
In fact, you spend more time outside the car with the guys than you actually drive. You only drive for sort of 6, 7, 8 hours in the whole weekend. So I think we found a nice chemistry together. Matthias Holler, who runs the team, is a fantastic asset and a really nice guy. Made me feel very welcome. And there's a lot of small things that each team does differently, and I have to say these guys have been doing it long enough. I'll give you an example. This morning I was rushing around a little bit in a panic because my fireproofs were gone, and I was thinking this just can't be, but they had taken them and laundered them. So that's the thing. You don't expect, but it's obviously very nice to realise some people have got that kind of consideration. Brilliant. Maybe it's for their own noses and not mine that they did that, but nevertheless, I've got them back now, nice and fresh.
Peter Kate, a man outstanding in his field. Peter, lovely to see you again.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Race well. Enjoy.
I'll try and pop back if I can.
Yeah, you know where we are now.
Absolutely, and there are a few tea bags next door.
Never underestimate the restorative effect of a good cup of Tregothanan tea.
That's the one, yeah.
Thank you, Peter.
All right, thank you, John. Take care.
Peter Kate from the 261 Mathol Racing Cayman. A couple of improvements at the top of the shop. Johnny Palmer in the last couple of laps.
Yeah, still haven't beaten the 8:14.771, but joining the 98 car on the provisional front row, if you like, but it'll all count later, is the number 4 Mercedes from Team Get Speed. So their AMG GT3 now has Jules Gounon at the wheel. So he's hustled the car up to an 8:15.915, which is faster than that car has gone in all 3 of the sessions. Still over a second slower though than the time set earlier on in the week by Nicky Katzberg. So it's a BMW Mercedes top 2, followed by the 101, which that's the Valkenhorst Motorsport BMW, still no improvement there, 8:15.936. The 27 Tok Sport WRT Porsche, now with Mathieu Jaminet at the wheel, is 4th quickest. 5th position for the Bilstein Mercedes, with currently Lucas Stoltz at the wheel of the bright yellow and blue front-engined 6.2 litre V8. Then you got the 44 Klaus Bachler-driven Falcon Motorsports Porsche in 6th. 7th position for the Scherer Sport Team Phoenix Audi. Its current driver is a certain Frank Stippler. And then Jordan Pepper in the number 7 Lamborghini Huracan of Conrad Motorsport. And I reckon that's probably an improvement as well. 8:16.449. Pepper set to go quicker again. He just set 2 personal bests on the Grand Prix Strecker, and that number 7 car was also, well, if it didn't join late, it was kind of due to join late when the rules were written, but because we lost 20 minutes yesterday, it may well have been an all-in from the start. But the 7 car, 1 or 2 people's dark horse perhaps for pole position later on. The trick for Conrad is to turn their single lap speed around the Nordschleife into 12-hour, 18-hour, 24-hour pace.
Improvement as well a little bit further down the top 20 for the AMG Team Bilstein Mercedes to an 8:18.279. That puts them in 13th position. Down in 25th position, the Schnitzerland Mercedes GT3, AMG GT3, has just come into the pit lane, having set its best time of the week so far, an 8:21.226. That's what, 6.5 seconds off Paul at the moment. And CP Racing have improved as well. Must remember that's the 21 car, not the 85. There is an 85 here as well, and every time I see 85's number flash up, I immediately make the connection with CP Racing. The red, white and blue AMG GT3 at 8:23.930. Charles Esplanade last at the wheel of that car, and they are sitting in 30th 30th of position at the moment. So there's time in the track still, and there's time to do it with just under 10 minutes of qualifying, true qualifying, Ben Constanduris, still to go. Sun's out, the wind's blowing a little bit, but this is not bad conditions out there.
Interesting to note that some of the guys that are actually still competing in qualifying in the lower classes, choosing not to come out. Obviously, we heard from Peter Kate just a second ago, they are not out on circuit. There are 19 other cars that have yet to make it out onto circuit in this particular session, choosing perhaps to save the car and not needing to use this session because qualifying perhaps isn't necessarily important. Yes, traffic is obviously a big issue in the first hour or two of the race before we get those pit stops in, but once we start cycling through pit stops and stuff, then you find that the pits, the starting position is less important. Obviously, in an endurance race, generally it's not that important. But plenty of the lower class cars deciding not to come out in this session, and 20 cars in total is what, about 12-15% of the total field. I can't work my maths out on the fly like that. But
nor me. But basically, there's 135 entries and about 20 odd cars haven't made it out. So you can do the maths at home, folks. It's not what we're here for, certainly not.
It's not really maths, though, is it? It's arithmetic.
Probably.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
Oh.
No, that's not. We haven't gone long enough in the session for it.
8.5 minutes, I don't know.
Plus a lap if you get round now. That's the thing, isn't it? If you cross the line in the next 8.5 minutes, you've got another 8.5 minutes to go. So, you know, potentially you could be looking at 16 minutes of running right now if you time it right.
Augusto Farfus's time was really looking very, very strong, but I noticed that he got stuck behind a Porsche in one of the faster parts of the circuit. So whilst the last split that we had for him is only 6/10 off the best time, this is the 99 BMW that's down in 18th position right now. I'm not sure whether he will continue to be able to improve. He's got a Cayman now in front of him a bit further around the lap. He clears that a little bit quicker than he did the bright green Cayman that we saw a little bit earlier on, and we will soon he's in that sector, that 7th sector of the lap, which is nearly 2.5 minutes long. So some of them are quite short, 19 seconds for sector 8. Others are over 2 minutes, like sector 7. Why? Who knows?
Very good question. I mean, you would have thought you want to slice it into fairly even chunks, but
sometimes you can't.
No, you
what
can't.
you don't want is, I suppose, cars running off and cleaning out a timing loop. So are they in a relatively sort of straight section where accidents are very rare?
We get 9 sectors.
True.
The teams, and for the purposes of qualifying and lappery and absolute laps, and of course for speeds through slow zones, etc., etc., I think it's somewhere near a 40.
Okay, well,
Marco Seefried was telling me that when we were talking about that algorithm that we were trying to explain yesterday, and gave up as soon as the word algorithm was used, to determine who got into the top 15, the pre-qualified cars, on theoretical fastest laps, as Johnny Palmer describes. I've glazed over again, and I'm saying it myself, you see. I think Marco Seefried was telling me, I think it was something like 30 odd sectors for that to be calculated. That's a huge amount of data.
It is.
To look at and work through. Hence the necessity for that to be done by an algorithm.
Yes. Well, presumably somebody in timing is just hitting a button and it goes through all its pre-programmed methodology and just churns out the relevant numbers at the other end, and then it gives you the qualified cars. But it's from a fan perspective.
Hell of a lot of abacuses.
Yeah. From a fan perspective, I mean, well, you could argue how many of the fans here actually care that much. They just want to see cars going very, very fast. You can drill down as far as you like, really, into the intricacies of which cars are in and which cars are out of Q2. I've just got a list of them. And how they got there, all very mysterious.
Matt G's posed the question, why do we love the Nürburgring so much? Well, for a start, he says GT3 cars intentionally getting airborne. Ken Childs adding to that, I just love the variety of cars. There's no race like it. All on track at the same time. Multi-class racing, yeah, absolutely. surely that, and you can't not love the Nordschleife. Hashtag 24H, N24H RSL. Can I get that right? N24H RSL at RSL_studio. Still to come today, at the completion of this, we will know the provisional pole sitters for the classes, but we will have to have the shootout, the 2 shootouts now, before we can say who's on pole position for the 50th anniversary TotalEnergies ADAC 24h the Nürburgring. And as an extra treat for you tonight, I'll be joined here in our booth by Becky Evans, star of stage and screen, and crucially, a drift expert and driver extraordinaire, as we take you through the excitement of the Falcon Drift Show. That's all on the world feed as well later on today. Last 5 minutes coming up.
Assenheimer's just gone up into 5th position in the 55 Mercedes team Landgraf. That was in a lot of the SB3 cars in the second half of the lap. We do have a slow zone now down in the first part of the lap at Nürburgring. Has been a yellow flag there for quite a while, but it's now been upgraded to a slow zone. But I'm afraid without a tracker in front of us, I'm not sure exactly what's going on. We haven't seen pictures yet as to see what's happening in Nürburgring.
Well, I just wonder whether it's related to the Team Mattol number 300 car that was off earlier on, because you reckon that was on the run from Schwedenkreuz to Nürburgring, John. So if it's rattled the barrier and they've worked out that maybe the integrity of that, well, they could be recovering it. They could be repairing.
Behind the barrier.
That's what made me think that it's Armco that's been dinged, and they don't think it's suitable to continue cars at full speed on the approach.
What's Lucas Stolz's splits looking like, JP, as he's heading back towards us?
Yeah, purple through the first sector. That's purple in this sector, so decent for the first half of the Grand Prix Strecke, and green virtually through everything else. So this is going to be up there. Expected across the line in the next half a minute or so.
8.16.1 is that car's best. 8.18 last time through. Assenheimer's come back into the pits after his 8.16.0, which was good enough for 5th for the 55 team Mercedes MG team car that Ben was just talking about. So let's see what Lucas Stolz can do in that number 12 team Bilstein 6th place car at the moment. There he goes across the line. Doesn't. Oh, I think he just got slightly held up in the last couple of sectors. The Glickenhaus is done for the afternoon. They have improved to 14th position with an 8.17.937. Felipe Fernando Laser out in that car last, and that's that car's fastest lap of the weekend.
Hearing that it's the 255 Porsche Cayman 718 of Krymer Racing down at Nürburgring. It has Alexander Crocker driving that car at the moment. He shares that with Tobias Wolff and Jean-Francois Bruno, who is not French, although he sounds French. He is from America, and a friend of us at RSL Studio when we go to the 24H series. Jean-Francois not in that car, did have some laps last night, but it's Alexander Crocker stationary down at Nürburgring. Whether that's a technical or whether that's an issue, we do not know.
Just to finish off a point that I should have made on the Glickenhaus, if I can get my timing screen back. They had improved and were actually getting quite close to the pole-sitting SPX car, which is the KTM. But just as they did that, the True Racing Crossbow GT2 went quicker itself with an 8.16.8. So 8.16.8 against 8.17.9, so barely a second between those two cars in the battle for SPX. 5 places, or 4 places between them. 10th for the True Racing Crossbow and 14th for the Glickenhaus SCG 004C. Both in the pits, so their sessions are done, with the checkered flag coming out in about a minute's time. The good news is we can see the flag stand from where we are, so we can tell you exactly when that goes out in the afternoon sunshine. Still to come, 2 pole shootouts later on, qualifying with cars being set off at the 10-20 second intervals. Opportunity for 2 quick laps with very little traffic on the Nordschleife, a driver's dream.
Improving that KTM Crossbow GT2 car's pace is Tim Heinemann, who is not only a very, very successful GT4 driver in the ADAC GT Masters Series and DTM Trophy, but also very, very good in the simulator. And he has a YouTuber just alongside him. Felix von der Laden is part of that team as well. We've seen Felix in the car last year as well. 3.5 million YouTube subscribers on Felix von der Laden's channel. Not something you might want to watch if you are not a German speaker, because it's all exclusively in German. But in the world of YouTube and sim racing, he is the man.
Der Mann.
Yeah.
Ist. So, checkered flag is now out. Anyone who's on a lap obviously gets to complete it. There's quite a lot of green in the top 30. We've mentioned most of it. Did we mention Matthew Jamin here?
Yep.
Yeah, good. In the TalkSport Porsche, TalkSport WRT, probably better known for European Rally Championship. Champions in that with it's Tom Ingram, isn't it? Chris Ingram, sorry. Who's Tom Ingram?
Touring car driver.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah.
No relation.
And ran Andreas Mikkelsen to the European Championship last year as well.
Yeah.
In my mind, WRT stands for World Rally Team.
Yes.
Not World Racing Team, but WRT, part of TalkSport's name. And now do quite a lot of GT racing.
Yeah, swapped from AMG to Porsche relatively recently. They've got on very well indeed with the GT3R. The new version of the GT3R with the 992 body shell being testing extensively in the last few weeks. Was at Spa a couple of 3 weeks ago. Still got its camouflage on, but it looks a real mean beast. And when you see the times that the Carrera Cup cars are running with that body shape and the revised aero, still the same engine, of course, and I suspect the engine in the GT3R will be carried over to the new body shape. But we wait to see that. Told by Weissach that their cars were being delivered by the end of the year to go racing in IMSA in January 2023. That will be, won't it? There's a test at Daytona in December this year. There's some thought that there may be some cars out there, but the rest will be delivered late December, early January for those US customers that want them. GT3, of course, about to go through a massive change in regulations with the ACO and the FIA bringing it. It's always been an FIA category, but I think reasonably been pretty much ascribed to SRO and Stefan Rattel, who got it going in the first place. Watching a very rapid Aston Martin on the timing screens at the moment, and now coming down through Flugplatz with the campsites really filling up on drivers left down there. And some improvement for, is that Nicky Team?
Marco Sorensen.
Sorensen, right, okay.
Yeah, and there's only 3 non-German brands in the top 20. This is the car in 20th position, the Aston Martin. 2 cars ahead of it in the top 20 is a Ferrari 488 of Octane 126. And then up in the top 10 is the Conrad Motorsport Lamborghini in 9th position. There's the only 3 cars, other than the Glickenhaus, that's not German in our top 20.
Well, what do you call KTM?
Well, yeah, I saw that. Austrian, officially.
It's not German.
It's German speaking.
I wasn't going to say anything, Ben, but John made a big attention to it. Anyway, I know what you mean, because you were talking about the SP9 cars.
I was, you're right. Thank you very much.
We weren't including SP8.
Good save.
Right, the top of the shop is still Rover Racing with their BMW from Get Speed up into second. Valkenhorst BMW in third. TalkSport Porsche is fourth. Then 2 Mercedes. Then Falcon with their 44 car in 7th, 8th. Scherer Teams Phoenix, then Conrad in 9th, True Racing in 10th. However, importantly, for outside of the top classes, the Cup X Teichmann Racing KTM Crossbow is provisionally on pole position. Cup 2 for the Carrera Cup 992s. It's Fricatelli Racing Team. Chan's been really quick, and that is a change in that category in this session. 36th position for the Fricatelli Racing Team. Sabine Schmidt's team, of course, and great to see that name back here, albeit with a GT3 Cup car, but it's brilliant to see the red and white cars here. Again, it's the Dodge Viper who's held on to AT, alternative fuel Paul, the number 13 car. Aston Martin's in SP10 and SP8T for Pro Sport and Dome Motorsport in 51st and 53rd for the 81 and 95 car. FK Performance have their 718 Cayman as the Cup 3 runner. They didn't go out this afternoon. Mark Besseng was last in behind the wheel of the Elantra 830, which is still shown as pole position for TCR. STI with the WRX Subaru for SP3T, the 114. It's Hoffer Racing's 200 with the BMW E46 that is in SP6 pole. SP7, Uber Motorsport damaged in that session and has to go and see the clerk of the course. Will they lose their time? At the moment they haven't, and they are SP7 pole sitters. Cup 5 has Adrenaline Motorsport on top of the shop for the 871. That's the M2 Racing Cup car. The VT3 Team Mathol car ended up behind the barriers in that session, but holds on to pole position in VT3 for now, 90th position. The privately entered Porsche number 718 is on top of SP4T. The BMW 240i class has the 240 at the top for Adrenaline Motorsport. They also had the V6 category with their 396 Porsche Cayman, and the rear drive VT2 category with their 330 BMW number 330. And the other leaders in class provisional pole sitters then, Toyota Gazoo Racing's Altis in SP3, the 119 tie-driven car. VT2 front Hyundai driving experience with the i30N for the 332 car. V5 Adrenaline's Porsche 981 Cayman, the 444, and the 324 FK Performance 325. Problems early on in the session with the shed wing for the Uber Motorsport number 70, and that earned them a trip to, or something around then earned them a trip to the race control area, but in pretty decent conditions this afternoon, Johnny Palmer. We saw improvements up and down the field, including, crucially, in the top 20.
Yeah, some cars that needed to find some pace ahead of qualifying later, including the number 27 TalkSport WRT car. Certainly Phoenix found some speed as well, courtesy of Frank Stippler and his teammate Ricardo Feller, the Swiss, going well in qualifying 3. But a number of teams actually deciding that they'd done enough qualifying. All of their drivers had done the prerequisite of 2 timed laps, and rather than do or risk any potential damage to the car on Friday afternoon, just park it up and get set for the race tomorrow. Glorious sound in the background, Lawrence Vantor powering his way out of the Cariacciolo Carousel in the number 1 Manthey Racing Porsche. That is a pre-qualified car, but big doubts as to where it will start in Group 1 tomorrow, probably somewhere near the back because of a penalty earned earlier on in the week.
So a couple of dramas there, which will give the teams further down the field a slightly busier Friday night than they would like, Ben. But for the top cars, it's not over yet.
Well, and also it's going to be interesting to see just how they cope with the traffic at the start of the race. It's going to give that first hour a real interesting complexion. There'll be no settling in for the guys that really need to fight through the pack with 33 SP9 cars. We will be going qualifying for top qualifying later on this evening with firstly all the SP9 cars out, and then the top 19 for the full shootout. An opportunity to see how fast they can do a complete lap without traffic.
5:45 Central European summertime. That's 4:45 in the UK, live in sound and vision. We'll get the team back together for that. Thank you for being with us for the final full qualifying. It's single car qualifying, or close enough to it, when we come back later on this afternoon from here at the Nürburgring.
Surely